It's fascinating how the spirituality world, holistic world fits exactly into making business.
Well, you see, money is a form of energy. It's an exchange energetically for either knowledge, experience, or time.
Every challenge holds a story. Every struggle is a spark. Welcome to A Legend Forged, where athletes, heroes, and fearless fighters of disability defy the odds and rewrite the rules. Learn to live an unfiltered life with the unstoppable Aron O'Dowd. A Legend Forged begins now. Today on A Legend Forged, host Aron O'Dowd welcomes Doug Gordon. Doug Gordon is an award-winning CEO, motivational speaker, best-selling author, and executive life coach. He's a corporate trainer who covers topics like leadership, sales, presentation skills, high performance, goal setting, resilience, and more. As we join the conversation today, Aron is sharing a little bit about his near-death experience. In fact, Doug has his own near-death experience story and how it's changed him. Let's join the conversation. Here now is host Aron O'Dowd.
I've had a few near-death experiences myself, and life changes. Is that something you expected in your world?
Yeah, it did. I think to begin with, I resisted it. And I think I look back now and I realize you can look in life in very different perspectives. So I was in the investment world. I was selling investment products, mutual funds, hedge funds, everything like that. I really enjoyed it. I have to say, I made some amazing contacts, worked with some amazing people, everything like that. But I didn't see at the time how it really kind of gave me a sense of purpose. But if I reframe it now, I could look at actually what I was doing. I was helping that end granny or grandpa retire younger, give more to their children, their grandchildren, or buy a better retirement home, or basically have a better life. And I didn't see that at the time. I just saw it as transactional. But now I think if I was back in it now, I would see it in a different way. Because I truly believe that, everything you do in life, there's an energetics of it and how it adds value to somebody's life in some way or form. And as long as you focus on that and see that in your mind's eye, it can really help you. But at the time, I think because I was having some marriage issues as well, I couldn't see that. And also, I think at the time I was also coming to the end of my hockey career, and I played National League First Division hockey. And the joy of getting up on a Saturday morning every week and going to do that was suddenly taken away as I was reaching that age where I couldn't run after the ball the same way I used to. So I think all of those together amalgamated to stress, depression, and that led to a lot of the problems that I had. But I didn't have that awareness at the time. And I think what I can say to people now is that if you can create awareness of your triggers, your traumas, your parental programs, and through that awareness and understanding of what they are, then you can catch yourself out each time you go into that kind of program, that subconscious program that you might play out.
For sure. I know athletes, the biggest challenge they have is they're playing at that very high end and trying to transition into retirement life. It'd be hard. Is that something you found difficult, and as well as the near death kind of made that transition easier?
No, I don't think the near-death experience made it any easier. It's still when you really love doing something and you really enjoy doing something, but suddenly the knees and the back said, "Look, it's time to do something else." It's hard. And I played hockey from the age of 16 and absolutely loved it. And played and captained many teams. I actually played alongside Jason Lee, who was the Great Britain coach in 2012 Olympics for the men's team. So,
Wow.
played a decent level and absolutely, I would look forward to it all day long. It's amazing. In sport, we have a look at things like we make sure we're, fit, we're healthy, we're training all the time, we're visualizing everything around us in terms of how we do our plays. And sometimes we don't do that in business or in life. And sport gives a real sense of purpose every single week, working together, collaborating together, almost going to war together in kind of like in a team orientated environment. And there's not many aspects of life that you get that. And that's why it is hard. I know a lot of professional rugby players and football players who have come out of the game, and they have it even worse because I wasn't getting big crowds watching me, whereas they've got the big crowds. So they've got that kind of ego driven kind of
Mhm.
dopamine hit every week as well. Whereas I just gave up something I loved, and it coincided at the exact same time as my marriage breakdown. So I had to spend some time with the kids as well. So it was a double whammy, shall we say.
Okay. And do you miss it?
Absolutely, yeah. But I think the important thing to do is when you have that situation, when you're moving away from something that you really love, it's to create something else. And I think what I really created initially was, it was in line with the things that were going wrong with me, is that I ended up then getting into personal development, into mindfulness, into mindset, into even, energy healing as well. And I changed from, my focus every week about, playing sports and winning, into a focus every week on how many people can I help this week and change their life in some way or form. And that now for me is a real sense of passion and purpose. And even if I look back now, if I went back into, say, like working in the investment world like I was doing before, I would have a completely different mentality. I would see, yes, sell the product, yes, add value to the client, but I'd also see is how much can I add value to the person, the soul behind the business person as well. In other words, I believe that you meet somebody in life for two reasons. One, the business reason or the life reason, but also maybe some kind of spiritual reason, that you can help them in some way or form. And I would see that and reframe that in everything in life.
When you discovered, the world of holistic mental health, was it foreign to you in some way?
Well, in some ways, no, because my mother was a Reiki master teacher from my age of 20. And I remember I used to ask her, she was practicing, she was only just getting into it there. I was 20 years of age. I said, Mum, you can try it on me. So she would practice on me. And I did notice that every single time I'd go out in Dublin to the local pubs or clubs, it seemed as if my aura was shining in some way or form, because I seemed to get extremely lucky with the ladies. And I think that was largely down to, obviously good energy and good vibe at the time.
Wow, and that's great when someone's doing the treatments, you can see it vibrate. But did you bring that into your work, hockey, and life going forward?
Yeah, I've always been into the kind of like the Tony Robbins stuff. I think when I first got into working in the corporate world, I was a salesman selling to stockbrokers and financial advisors around the southeast of England. And I was in the car a lot. And in those days, we didn't have, obviously the MP3 stuff or MP4 stuff. We only had
Mhm.
cassette tapes. And, I bought a lot of cassette tapes. So I listened to the likes of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is interesting now because his son actually testimonies my book. And I also had listened to a
Wow.
lot of Tony Robbins stuff as well. So it's phenomenal how, when you listen to this stuff, you can learn a lot of stuff about mindset, about performance, and take that into the business that you have as well. So I was learning a lot in terms of personal development, affirmations, positive thinking, visualizations, and using them in the general workplace as well.
What was the impact of using them for you?
Well, I'll give you a great example. So there was one time, and there was we had back in 2012, I was working for a particular company, and I'd brought in about 285 million quid's worth of business from a particular fund, a fund manager. And the fund that they were invested in, there was 12 people in the team, and one of them was a Russian guy, and he did a rogue trade that thankfully we caught out before it went through. But the Financial Conduct Authority came down on them like a ton of bricks. And within not so long afterwards, they ended up taking, like the whole team left. And there was only one guy left. And he was a Brazilian guy that couldn't speak great English. And at that point, actually, he looked a bit like you, Aaron. At that point, he did. Could be twins. At that point, I actually my CEO, which was my boss at the time, said, "Look, the money's going to go, Doug. We're going to lose it." And I said, "No, I am sure we can. I know, very positive. I'm sure we can keep this money." And I knew the client quite well, and I trained up the fund manager to make sure he knew how to present. Also, he made sure that he knew what the client wanted. And then we went in to the actual meeting. And I remember him when he started speaking in the meeting. I obviously did the intro about what was going on in terms of the company and everything like that as the head of sales. And then he went into how he does what he does. And I could see the fund managers on the other side, as in the clients on the other side, kind of looking a bit bored. They weren't really interested, and it just wasn't really happening. And what I did there is I literally, obviously, changed the energy. One through mindset, one through heart, by projecting a sense of positivity out to them, but also just by intervening, just by little tweaks of communication presentation skills, and also bringing people together skills. It completely changed the energy in room. And suddenly the fund manager went from this kind of guy who was a bit bumbly because he was speaking his second language to suddenly talking about the stocks and how he bought and sold them, which brought him up into this energy of excitement and enthusiasm. And I could see the other guys suddenly at the other side of the table go like this as well. So I knew that at that point the energy had changed. And I think, you could walk into a room and two people can have an argument, you can feel that energy. And you
Mhm.
can walk into another room where you might be tired, but you meet a load of really interesting, fun people with loads of enthusiasm and energy, and you walk out feeling like that as well. So I think when you project positive energy across to people from a place of love and genuine authenticity rather than trying to manipulate, it's amazing how you can change the energy in the room. And that's what I did quite often by connecting with people's hearts on an authentic, trustworthy level rather than just trying to win business.
How do you do that in the business world, you know?
Well, number one is being authentic. Number two is being vulnerable and sharing something maybe about yourself that is a truth that actually a lot of people have. Because when you meet with people in terms of business, quite often, let's say it's an hour meeting, especially if it's a one-to-one meeting, you'll talk
Mhm.
about business, you'll talk about the product, you're talking about the service, but you want to get to know the person, especially if it's a B2B situation where you're looking to work long-term together as partners. So people always want to know, people by people. People are talking about AI as how it's going to change the world and all this kind of stuff, and it will in some aspects. But I put a poll out there on LinkedIn, what are the best ways to grow your business? And every single answer came down to people by people. And that's where that'll never change. So if you can get out there and really come from your heart space rather than your head space when you're speaking to others and really come from a place of love, understanding, active listening, and trying to add value to the person rather than trying to push something onto them, then you'll find that it changes. And it's just a natural state of coming from wanting to help another human being rather than trying to get something from them, if that makes sense.
It makes complete sense, and when you're presenting something in that heartfelt space, it must be difficult to navigate because it's so wide and narrow at the same. But tell us about how you were able to navigate that through presenting.
Yeah, so one of the things I always teach people is before you go out on stage is to put your hand in your heart. So I put my hand in my heart and I would say, I am Doug Gordon, I am my heart. Please let me
Okay.
connect the hearts of the audience in order to bless rather than impress and add as much value. And when you get on stage, then is you go into your heart space, you feel the energy in your heart, and you project it out to the audience. So what happens is, ironically, is that because you are just there in the feeling of love and trying to add value to people, you lose that sense of fear, you lose that sense of ego, and you don't mind if you make a mistake because you know you're just there to add value. And ironically, what happens is because you lose that fear, you tend to speak more concisely and clearly. And it brings out that in the energy that you project out from you as well. So people can read their energy. And that's why it's so important to come from a genuine, authentic space in terms of bringing that sense of love and added value to others. And it might sound a bit wishy washy, but
Mhm.
actually, in business, long term, trust comes from people who like other people. And that's where you need to bring that sense of authenticity and love across. And people say as well that the highest frequency energy is love. Well, actually, I think if you're your authentic self, you will be what we call your higher self, your best self, and then you'll come from that place of love.
It's fascinating how the spirituality world, the holistic world, fits exactly into making business.
Well, you see, money is a form of energy. It's an exchange energetically for either knowledge, experience, or time. So if you're vibrating, and our frequency in terms of how we vibrate and our vibe attracts our tribe comes down how do you think, how do you speak, and how do you act. So if you speak more positively, if you think more positively and act more positively, you're going to attract a more positive outcome in your life. And actually, they showed if you have a look at the stock market returns of the top places to work for tend to 80% of the time go up the day before Thanksgiving, the day before Easter, the day before Independence Day, and the last 2 weeks of the year in terms of the Santa rally, because people are happy and they're positive because they either know they're going on holiday the next day or they're literally kind of in that holiday period of the last 2 weeks of the year as well. So it's been proven. You can see it in the stock market.
That's fascinating, and it just shows you happiness equals fun and mental health. If you're happy, healthy, it presents through vibration.
Well, Aaron, I agree, but I think one of the things I would say is I did mention that I believe that there's a balance in the universe of darkness and light,
Mhm.
and we're always going to have tough times. There's nobody that can say they're happy all the time. There's nobody that can say they're good all the time. There's nobody that say they have great times all the time. And when you can accept that and accept there is going to be imperfections, you can accept there is going to be tough times, then when you go into that tough times, you reframe it in a different way. You think, okay, number one, this is a time of learning. And number two, if I am going through this tough time now, maybe I'm leveraged up for some good times ahead as well. And even if that's not true, but if you take that mindset, your mindset can create. And that's why you might just create that in the future as well. So every single time you're going through something, ask yourself, okay, this is a bit tough now. What's going on? What can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? How can I get through this to come through the other side as the best version of me?
Oh yeah, for sure. And how do you manage that, leveraging your mental health and your mindset to be in that space?
Well, I think it was Warren Buffett actually said that if you're not in control of your emotions, you're not going to be in control of your money. So, I mean, emotions are energy in motion. And as I said, money is an exchange for energy. And if you can control your emotional intelligence, which is self awareness in terms of being aware of your own triggers, traumas, parental programs, so you can catch yourself out, so you can stay in the best possible focused state, but also situational awareness in terms of economic awareness, market awareness, client awareness. Also, if you're running a business, which I have in the past, and being a leader in, say, C-level, you need to be aware of the divisional awareness within the organization and to understanding the operations, the finance, the marketing, all those different operations are going to have different agendas, different timelines. So we need to work collaboratively together rather than in competition. And that means helping other people out and really good communication. I always say, the word relationship can be broken down into three different parts. There's a ship in terms of that word. That means it goes in a direction. There's a shun, which means, your expectations, your intentions that need to be relayed, as in, active listening and conscious communication through your effective presentations and communications to put yourself and the team, yourself and your clients, and even yourself on board that ship traveling in the right direction, whether that's the mission statement of the company, the goals or targets that you're trying to achieve, whatever it is. So emotional intelligence is so important to be able to create a better leader, a better organization, and a better outcome. And that includes not just awareness, but also conscious communication, empathy in terms of being able to understand how other people think, speak, and act. Also in terms of self-regulation, because there will be shitty times. So we need to be able to self-regulate so that we get through them quickly rather than dwelling on them. And then finally is that sense of motivation or even inspiration, which is a sense of purpose that is linked in to emotional intelligence as well. And if you can get everybody on board within your organization, working from a place of motivation and inspiration, it'll lead them to where you need to go quicker, faster, and easier, and as a collaborative team, because they'll feel like they're working towards something that means something to them.
Wow, listening to that, I feel like I'm Captain Picard of my own enterprise ship to navigate the world,
100%. Big up, Scotty.
And when you break it down like that, it is. And why is leadership is so important for you?
Well, leadership for me is not about managing people. It's about leading by example. And, in terms of what I do, I would say I'm a good leader. I wouldn't necessarily say, management would be my main. I'm a good manager because I'm a very good coach, but I love leading by example and then hoping people will follow as well. So in leadership, it's about stepping outside of your comfort zone. It's about taking risk. It's about looking at the vision, looking at the strategy, looking at what you're trying to do for the future, for the company, understanding that you will go down some cul-de-sacs at times, understanding that fail is just an acronym for first attempt in learning, understanding that fear, it means false evidence appearing real, but also to be able to hold the ship in the right direction when the wind is blowing and the waves are lapping up on the side of the ship. And that's when you need to stay very stern in your approach, in terms of, when I say stern, I mean keeping the ship stern, in your approach to make sure that you don't go off target, off those goals. And it's all about bringing people together in a collaborative sense, because when you collaborate together, you can create new things from nothing. But if you're in a state of competition, which often happens within organizations, there is people going from a sense of lack. And that's not what you want. It's an abundant mindset, working together as a team, collaboratively creates profitability, it creates love for what you do and love for the clients you serve. So that's what I try and implement, a conscious leadership kind of mentality, not just within me, but within everybody that I work with, so that they can work as leaders in their own selves as well.
For sure. And when you're working in them, how do you navigate that to get into that space of superhero-ness?
Yeah, well, number one is making sure they see the sense of purpose in what they're doing. In other words, as I said earlier on, making them really, really buy into the energetics of what they do and even the small tasks and how it interlinks into the bigger tasks that actually lead to the outcomes for the end customers, whether it be the mother, father, brother, sister, son, or daughter. So when they can see that in their mind's eye, that actually maybe doing this spreadsheet leads to better data, that leads to better sales, that leads to better products in the hands of the clients, and actually that product is going to improve their life in some way or form, then they get a sense of waking up in the morning that this isn't just a clock in, clock out thing. So that's be the first thing, that sense of purpose. Or if they haven't got a job, and you want to lead them in the right direction in terms of coaching, which is what I do, is what do they love doing? What are they good at doing? What can they add value to people? And finding a match, or working out what's the mess that they've had in the past that they've learned from, they can turn into a message to give it meaning to help other people. So that sense of purpose is the first part. And then the second part is once you know in a heartfelt sense, okay, where you generally would like to go, then you need to put goals in place in that direction. And what happens is the goals can be out here, but before the goal, there can be things in the way. It could be fear, procrastination, control, perfectionism, worry, jealousy, whatever it might be, could be in that way. So we need to clear that path out of the way so they can go directly towards the goals. So I help them. I've got a purpose-driven awareness technique, which is in my book, Charge Yourself Up for Success, which is an international bestseller. It's a testimony by Stephen Covey and people like that. You can have a look at the purpose-driven awareness technique, excuse me, the purpose-driven awareness techniques to be able to have a look at the different areas. And through awareness and understanding of what they are, then you create a positive opposite. So let me say, for example, if you're not actively listening enough, you might create something like an affirmation for yourself of, I am always listening with love and understanding the other person's perspective, or whatever it is. Say if you have procrastination, you go, I am focused on my goals and taking action towards them in a positive way, something like that. So it's about understanding what those are and catching yourself out in the moment through self-awareness, because most people aren't even aware of what those are. And I do it by, number one, have a look at your own self. Number two, have a look at 5 people that are in your life, because your vibe attracts your tribe. So have a look at all the things that they do that they sabotage themselves with, or they don't like. And then because they're in their life, they're probably mirroring back areas that you need to self-improve on as well, that you're oblivious to. So by having a look at that as well, it can give you another perspective. And then the final perspective is to ask people. I had one client who was the head of sales at Dell. He got all his direct reports, his wife and his brother, all to tell him what they thought of him in a negative way and where he needed to self-improve. And he said it was harsh, but at the same time, it gave him a really good perspective of areas that he didn't see in himself. So these are kind of like things that you can do to get that perspective and not beat yourself up about it, by the way. It's just to have that, okay, understand at times I can be, fearful. How can I get over that? It's to go into a state of gratitude instead. What am I grateful for? I'm grateful for being on the show with you, Aaron. I'm grateful for being able to help lots of people. I'm grateful for my kids, whatever it might be. And that can take you from fear to gratitude to a state of love, and then put yourself back on track and go, bam, let's make something. And also, I think quite often what happens is people get worried and depressed about the past. And the past is history. The future is a mystery. The present is a gift. So live in the now. And that means really, really focusing on, you can't do anything about the past. We all make mistakes. I've made terrible mistakes in the past. Everybody does. But if you sit there going over them again and again and again, that's psychotic. So it's much better to just go, okay, I can't do anything in the past. I'm going to draw that line in the past. What can I do in terms of action in this moment now to bring myself forward to maybe a fabulous future rather than worrying about the past?
Wow, that's amazing. And having your show, did you feel like you were trying to model the masters that you looked up to?
Yeah, I mean, look, the show for me is an opportunity to meet cool people like yourself. It's a great opportunity to be able to, mastermind with people, understand people's mindset, and try and learn from people as well, because you're always learning and you can learn from everybody. When I went to India, I went to see the Dalai Lama, and I was going from place to place. I went from South India to North India and literally met so many different people. And it wasn't just the Dalai Lamas of the world or these, inspirational guys in the world. It's also, you can even learn from stories from taxi drivers, from hotel people. And I actually became really good friends in where I went to Dharamshala to see the Dalai Lama with the guy who owned the hotel, the small hotel where I stayed. It was a family luxury hotel. And we're still friends to this day. And literally, I was speaking to him 2 or 3 nights ago. So, you can literally learn from so many different people around the world if you have that sense of interest and curiosity to try and learn from everybody in a kind-hearted way.
Wow, and it must be cool to speak to people and they say, "I'm going to sponsor your book, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that," and realize, "Oh man, I've really created impact with these people."
So, look, won a few awards, and the biggest thing that I find is when people write nice things about you. And I think I've got about 100 plus LinkedIn recommendations of people who I've helped. And sometimes you get an imposter syndrome, even when you've been doing it as long as I have. And sometimes it's almost like having a trophy room, not for ego, but for a reminder, you know what, you can do it, and have a look what you've done. So sometimes these things are quite a nice thing to have. And the proof is in the pudding. The proof is not about the certificates, which I've got. It's not about, anything other than, can you actually take someone out of a situation, whether it be in business or life, and change their life for the better in some way or form?
Your show is called Inspiring Stories from Inspiring People. Is that what you see in yourself that you want to hang around with in some way?
I actually, to be honest with you, I wasn't quite sure. Initially, when I had the radio show with Dublin City FM, I was going to call it The Mindful Millionaire, because I was a millionaire at the time before I got divorced. And at that point, then I spoke to the radio guy and he said, "I don't know, Doug, maybe you should call it Inspirational People, Inspirational Stories or something like that. Because that way, when you speak to the guest and go, 'Oh, by the way, Aaron, I'd love to have you on my show,' it's called Inspirational People, Inspirational Stories. I think you're inspiring." And it works. I literally had one of the most famous English rugby players. I'm not going to mention his name because it hasn't been definitely happened. But I texted him last night on LinkedIn. I said, "Would you like to come on my show, Inspirational People, Inspirational Stories?" And he said yes. So, I've had some amazing people on, whether it be Niall Quinn, the footballer, Bernard Jackman, the rugby player, and Pascal Donoghue, obviously the finance minister and the president of Eurogroup, invited me into the government buildings in Ireland to interview him there, which was very kind of him. And, lovely to be able to meet these people, learn from these people, and interview these people, and share the insights and inspiration from these people as well.
Wow, Doug, what inspires you?
Well, for me, the biggest inspiration is connection to the heart. So my mission in life is to help as many people as possible connect to their heart self rather than their head self, find out what their true mission or purpose is in life, and then help them in a grounded sense to get there, whatever that is. And I truly believe that you can be the smartest man in the room, but if you can't communicate and present that out to other people, you're going to be the biggest secret in the world. So what I'm focusing at the moment, because I've honed, worked, trained myself and coached myself and learned from the best in terms of how to present, whether it be, I do a lot of interview skills training, I do a lot of media training, presentation and communications training within corporates and individuals and business owners. So I'm doing a lot of that now at the moment, where every single Friday now, or pretty much every single Friday now, I have a session with people either online or in person in Ireland. And also then I think it's every Monday night for 2 hours, people can sign up to do a course with me, which is the same thing basically as the Friday, but it's over a 4-week, 2-hour period every single time as well. And I'm passionate about helping people present and communicate, because the biggest thing that goes wrong in relationships is a lack of communication. It's amazing. Like, you get two people in a relationship, and it could be a love relationship or a business relationship. And this person goes, "That person is a flipping narcissist. They're not doing anything that I want. They're thinking they have to do this." And this person says exactly the same thing about this person. And all it is they've got different expectations, intentions, and needs. And they're not communicating effectively together to be able to create a collaborative environment together to move forward together. And that's why communication presentation skills are so important.
Doug, thank you so much for coming on, man. It's been a blast, and wow, you're conquering the world with every footstep of love and leadership.
So, Aaron, thank you. And I know you are as well. So thank you for having me on the show.